Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm thrilled you're here because today we're jumping right into an intense, analytical dive into an absolute masterpiece, Octavia Butler's Kindred. If you're fascinated by how the past inextricably builds the future, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down how this story acts almost like a memory machine, designed to completely collapse the distance between us and the modern day and the brutal reality of the Antebellum South. Section 1. The Cost of History. Okay, let's get right into the visceral, physical toll of this book. This quote is the opening line, and it immediately sets a horrific tone. Our protagonist, Dana, a modern black woman living in California, wakes up in a 1976 hospital missing a limb. Right from the jump, Butler is letting us know this isn't some whimsical time travel adventure. History doesn't just teach you a lesson, it literally claims its pound of flesh. It permanently marks the body. Now, Butler is a sci-fi legend, right? But she actually completely rejected the hard sci-fi label for this specific book. She called it a grim fantasy. There's no fancy time machine, there are no futuristic gadgets, there's no scientific explanation at all. Instead, the mechanism dragging Dana back in time is entirely biological. It's this terrifying, inescapable summons rooted purely in fear. And that leads us to the brilliant, bitter historical irony Butler engineered here. Dana doesn't just live in the 70s, it's 1976, the US bicentennial. So you have Dana surrounded by national fireworks and massive celebrations of American freedom, only to be violently dragged back to a Maryland plantation in 1815. The cognitive dissonance is just massive. It heavily juxtaposes modern assumptions of liberty right up against the brutal reality of enslavement. Moving on to Section 2. Premise and world building. So, how exactly do the rules of this claustrophobic world work? It all operates on what we can call the blip rule. Dana discovers her distant ancestor is a white slave owner named Rufus Weylin. Whenever Rufus is in mortal danger and fears for his life, Dana is biologically tethered to him. She's pulled across time to save him, which she has to do to ensure her own eventual existence. But step 3 is the truly terrifying part. The only way Dana can return home to 1976 is if she genuinely believes she is about to die. Her own life has to be on the line to snap back. And this right here is what makes the world building so relentless. Time moves much faster in the past. When Dana gets pulled back to 1815, she might be trapped there for months, sometimes even years. But when she snaps back to California, only a few hours have passed. What this means is Dana literally has absolutely zero time to physically or psychologically heal between these trips. She is thrown right back into the trauma without a single moment to catch her breath. Section 3. Themes of survival and power.
This relentless pace builds incredibly deep psychological layers, especially when we look at how characters survive systemic oppression. Dana goes into the past with these modern 1970s militant sensibilities. She expects overt rebellion and defiance, but she learns very quickly that on a plantation, resistance isn't always a public spectacle. Characters like Sarah the cook practice silent endurance. They swallow their pride for calculated survival just to keep their families alive. Butler actually drew this from her own life, realizing her mother's submission as a domestic worker wasn't weakness. It was a necessary, calculated tool for survival.
Then we have to look at the tragic trajectory of Rufus. He doesn't start out as a cartoon villain. When Dana first saves him, he's just a lonely, malleable kid. But as readers, we watch the institution of slavery slowly and completely eat away at his humanity. It's a dark display of how systemic, absolute authority corrupts completely. Giving someone absolute legal ownership over other human beings will inevitably twist them into a monster.
And we definitely can't talk about power without discussing Dana's white husband, Kevin, who eventually gets pulled back in time alongside her. The dynamic between them is chilling. For Kevin, insulated by his privilege, the past is initially almost this fascinating history lesson. He views it with a dangerous distance. But for Dana, it's a visceral, constant threat to her physical body. Kevin's initial blindness really highlights the massive gap between just having sympathy and actually lived experience.
Section 4. Critiques and the White Gaze. While this book is a masterpiece, we need to take an objective look at some very valid hesitations modern readers have brought up. A major one focuses on the white gaze. The core question readers ask is, why is the narrative structured so that Dana is forced to repeatedly save a white oppressor? Countless black ancestors suffered horrific fates, yet the story's mechanism demands Dana continuously rescue the very man enforcing that suffering. It's an impartial, necessary critique that asks us to examine exactly who the narrative prioritizes.
Looking at the overall reader experience, the praise is immense.
Butler's unsparing, clean prose viscerally confronts trauma without ever romanticizing it, delivering brilliant thematic depth. On the flip side, some readers note that the constant back-and-forth time travel can make the middle arcs feel repetitive, and the ending is quite abrupt. And importantly, we have to give a strong warning here. The depictions of brutality, specifically whippings and sexual assault, are heavy. It can make this a deeply difficult read for some.
Section 5. Who will love this? So, is this challenging, monumental book the right fit for you? It is absolutely ideal for readers wanting a deep dive into generational trauma. It's perfect if you love character-driven sci-fi that prioritizes the human element over gadgets. It's also a must-read for anyone fascinated by interracial dynamics under extreme pressure, and for Afrofuturism enthusiasts wanting to explore how the past and future are inextricably built upon one another. If you appreciate stories that collapse the walls between history and the present, you should definitely check out these comparator works too. Butler's own Parable of the Sower and Wild Seed deal with similar heavy survival themes. And for a cinematic parallel, the film Antebellum explores a remarkably similar, shocking transition from modern life to a claustrophobic plantation setting.
Finally, Section 6, Final Verdict and Next Steps.
To wrap things up, Kindred is simply not an easy experience, but it is an incredibly significant one. Going back to the metaphor of Dana's lost arm, this story proved that you literally cannot confront history without it leaving a permanent mark on you. It completely shatters any modern assumptions or illusions that we are disconnected from the actions of the past. And now I want to turn it over to you. For those of you who have experienced this incredible story, which scene in Kindred absolutely broke you or challenged your assumptions the most? Let's get a fascinating conversation going down in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.